listening to Tassie Encounters Moments on Faith FM, and we're coming to you from Tasmania, right across Australia. Each weekday at 9 a.m, you can hear what the Bible says about past, current and future events. You can learn how to study the Bible more effectively. You can get to know who God is, why we're here and where we're going. And you can experience personal encounters with Jesus. I'm your host, Jason Cook. And this week we've got Kyran Stanton joining us, a good friend of mine. Welcome, Kyran.
Thank you, Jason, for having me.
It's good to have you here, and it's good to have you back again. You've done a few programs with us, so yeah, it's great. Now, Kyran, just so our listeners get to know you a little bit more, give us a very quick description of one of your interests that you do outside of your normal work.
So I really enjoy history. It's just, there are so many stories, there are so many lessons, so many what-ifs and all this sort of thing. So there's never a shortage of things to talk about, and it really explains how our world is the way it is today, many aspects of it.
How we arrived here.
Exactly, yep.
And as they say, if you don't understand history, you're bound to repeat the past.
Exactly, so it becomes even more important to learn from our mistakes.
Yeah. Or other people's mistakes, hopefully.
Yes, yeah, true.
So this week we're going to be talking about the dilemma of debt, and you've got a bit of a historical story, I guess, as to, or that relates to this topic. And I won't reveal the theme of our program this week just yet. I'll make our listeners wait a little bit longer. But let's kick off with our story this morning, our history story.
Yeah, so I want to speak about a conflict that was called the 7 Years' War, and it's not well known, but it was pretty dramatic in its impact on the course of history. So it spanned from 1756 until about 1763, and its belligerents, or many of the participants, were quite powerful nations at the time. You know, you had Austria and Prussia, which is in Germany. You had France and Britain. You had Portugal, so it's pretty wide-ranging, and all of these countries, many of them had quite large colonial empires, so they had land in what is now the Americas. The United States didn't exist at this time, so land in India as well. So they engaged in this conflict, which was really as the result of a prior conflict called the War of Austrian Succession about 15 years earlier. And to get to the point, no one was really happy with how that War of Austrian Succession panned out, so it sort of led to the 7 Years' War 15 years later. Okay. And that war was quite costly, and particularly for France, it was quite embarrassing because they lost huge amounts of land to Britain in this. They lost control of Quebec in Canada, so a lot of that holding was given over to Britain, and land in India as well, you know, valuable industries and resources, you know, teas and textiles and all that sort of thing. So they lost a lot, basically. Anyway, but wars, as we know, can be quite costly, and they often put all the participants into significant debt, regardless of victors or those that are defeated. I want to change slightly the topic to talk a little bit about Britain instead of France in this situation. So Britain had a lot of debt, and they needed to get out of debt. So I guess, Jason, how do you reckon when a nation goes into debt, it might recover? It might try and pay off some of that debt?
Well, I think the first thing they would often do is raise taxes of the local people.
Yep.
And maybe another way is to just borrow money from someone else.
Yeah. So it's exactly what Britain did. They raised the taxes, particularly of the colonists in America. Now, I just want you to think about the lives of these colonists at the moment. You've put yourself in their shoes. They've just fought quite a costly war. They've probably been wounded. You may have took a bullet to the leg and you had to have that amputated. And now the war's over and you've come home to a farm and a family, and life's now a bit harder for you because you're missing a leg perhaps, and now you're having to pay significantly more taxes, and you might not have the ability to raise the revenue. How would you feel in that situation?
I think most people would struggle with that. They would become unhappy with the government, be quite disgruntled.
So basically what I've talked about is the start of the American Revolution, which was in 1775. So it's not long after this 7 Years' War. And France is basically watching this, thinking, oh, this is brilliant. We have a real chance to get back at Britain and help these colonists and maybe recover a lot of the things that we lost in the 7 Years' War. However, in order to do this, they had to strengthen their navy because they couldn't afford to have a large land force, which was protecting France in continental Europe, and a large navy to challenge Britain. It was just far too much money. So back to the question that we talked about before about how do nations get money? They raise taxes or they borrow. Well, France didn't really want to raise taxes because the population was already a little bit volatile from that sort of thing. So they, a man called Jacques Necker, who was the French finance minister, raised a lot of funds basically in the hopes that it would later be paid back through either taxation or the rich giving up tax concessions, because there was a lot of tax concessions around the nobility in that time.
Now, in order to go into the American Revolution, it's my understanding that there was a person who heavily advised against France getting involved with that. Is that right? Yeah.
So the predecessor to Jacques Necker is the man who borrowed a lot of the funding for the shipbuilding. His predecessor, or one of his predecessors, Jacques Robert Turgot, was heavily against in French involvement in the American Revolution. I think
because of the cost.
Because of the cost. Yeah. I think he made a comment that the first shot of the revolution will bankrupt France, which didn't seem to be the case. However, it all built up to the point where, 20 to 40 years later, France is now having to deal with crippling debt, and that's causing a whole wealth of issues.
Okay, so Louis the 16th.
Correct, yes.
Went ahead anyway.
Yeah, so many people have probably heard of Marie Antoinette. Well, Marie Antoinette was the wife of Louis the 16th. Yeah. So they were married quite young, and so a lot of potential inexperience, plus having to deal with all the issues from the 7 Years' War, which was actually during Louis's grandfather's reign. So Louis sort of came in as a young man having to deal with all these issues.
Fallout from
the fallout else. And not particularly having the experience or even really the character. He wasn't a strong leader. So I guess the point of all of this story is just interesting to see how, our desire for revenge, actually I've sort of jumped ahead a little bit, but basically the fallout of this debt from the French involvement in the American Revolution was a significant contributor to the French Revolution, which was happening in the 1790s basically. And I just find it so fascinating that France had this desire for vengeance, this desire to get even and get back what was taken from them, and it really led to so much instability. And
ongoing turmoil.
Exactly. Like we've all heard of, or many people have heard of the Reign of Terror in the French Revolution. People were getting killed left, right and centre. Everyone was suspicious. They were fearful. And then you can go even further forward into history, the Napoleonic Wars, and even after that. I don't know, have you heard of, it's a bit of a tangent, but have you heard of Les Mis?
Yes.
Yeah, the uprising in Les Mis. Well, that was... that happened in the 1800s, which was really a result of so much political instability from the French Revolution. So we're talking about almost 100 years of instability.
So we're sort of relating this idea of debt this week to the debt of sin in a way. We're sort of connecting that as a concept. We're saying, well, in a way, when we get into sin, that's sort of a debt. And the more sin we get into, the more debt that we get into, and the harder it is to get out of that, and the more trouble we typically have in our life if we start to steal things, if we start to lie and cheat, it becomes almost a never-ending cycle. And I guess some people even talk about the debt cycle too. I think that, it can be a real problem to get out of that cycle.
And I'm particularly interested in the idea that we're all sinful, and in our relationships, we can harbour a lot of bitterness for past hurt. That person hurts me, so I don't like them. And this is like a bit of a debt cycle. Like, it becomes hard to get out of this this negative way of thinking and this sort of almost self-righteous approach, like, oh, I'm the hurt one, they've hurt me, so
I'm the victim.
I'm the victim. I'm better than them.
Yeah.
And it's quite negative. Like it can spiral out of control and
create generations sometimes of problems.
Yeah.
Between people, between countries, even.
Yeah, and we've just the whole point of this history story was really to point that out. I mean, I'm sure we've all known people that have had some bitterness. I mean, maybe even we've had some bitterness, or perhaps our listeners have a story of holding on to grudges and how that hasn't particularly helped any reconciliation.
Or even just having your own personal peace. If you hold on to that bitterness and unforgiveness.
Yeah,
we've actually got a question that. If you feel like answering, we'd love to hear from you. Is there any part of unforgiveness that you're holding on to that's still causing you some level of bitterness or hurt? If you feel like it, you can text us in on 0488 880891. Now, of course, we know that sin entered the world in the Garden of Eden. We talked about this not long ago where, Adam and Eve ate from the tree that they weren't meant to because they believed a lie, really, and they wanted something that they thought they didn't have. So it almost came out of an envy or something.
Yeah.
But
it's like a disease, and that's where they really brought that disease into God's creation.
Yeah. But as we know from Romans, that it says here, none is righteous. No, not one. Not one understands. Not one seeks for God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one. Now, we're not saying here that no one does any good, but it's just saying fundamentally we all have sin in our lives. And we're going to unpack this a little bit this week, this concept of sin and unforgiveness particularly, and see how that looks. So we've got a book offer this week. We've come to the end of our program time, but our book offer is called Forgive to Live, so stay tuned for the code.
This program is made possible by the support of Adventist World Radio.
Forgive to Live, How Forgiveness Can Save Your Life by Dick Tibbetts. Every one of us has a grievance story, a hurtful event perpetrated by someone who mattered in our lives. And for most of us, that hurt simply will not go away. Enter forgiveness. In this revised and updated edition of Forgive to Live, Dr. Dick Tibbetts demonstrates that understanding and practicing forgiveness can literally save your life. That's our book offer this week, so do text us in, TEM45 to 0488 880 891. That's TEM45. Text it into 0488 880 891. Thank you, Kyran, and tomorrow we're going to be looking at the parable of the unforgiving servant, so do join us again then. This is Don't Waste Your Life by Ginny Owens. May you encounter Jesus more today.
I've been trying to make a living, but I haven't got a life. Chasing dreams with tunnel vision. I'm running out of time. Somewhere I lost what I've been missing. I look but never find. I never find. No. Stop long enough to pray for wisdom, and I waited for an answer. Opened up my heart to listen. What is it I'm here for? And in the noise of all my questions, I finally heard a whisper, a still small whisper. Don't waste your life wishing, hoping, waiting for a better day. You know that would be a shame. Shine, shine your light bigger, brighter, for the whole world to see. Play your part in history. Don't waste your life. So I'm making this my mission. Oh, I made up my mind. Even I can make difference, one story at a time. When I forget what I've been given, I can always find a lesson in these lines. Don't waste your life wishing, hoping, waiting for a better day. It would be a crying shame. Shine, shine your light bigger, brighter, for the whole world to see. Or play a part in history, so don't waste your life. Ooh, yeah. Don't waste your life. And every choice that you make, and every chance that you take. Don't waste your life. And every prayer that you pray, and every I love you that you say. Don't waste your life. And when you find yourself afraid, just repeat this simple phrase. Don't waste your life wishing, hoping, waiting for a better day. Trust me, that would be a shame. Shine, shine your light bigger, brighter, for the whole world to see. Or play a part in history. Don't waste your life. Your life.
This program has been made possible by the support of Adventist World Radio.